in the age of Elizabeth I and lasted until not so very long before the beginning of the reign of Elizabeth II, also saw a tremendous influx of terms from around the world, whether from India and all points east, or the Americas, or Australasia. In the 20th century, the cultural and military dominance of the United States not only guaranteed the status of English across the globe, but the slightly different forms of the language used in America as opposed to Britain have themselves contributed to the store of words on both sides of the Atlantic. May We Borrow Your Language is a story of origins. By explaining where a selection of our English words comes from, it hints at the range, exoticism, and idiosyncrasies of our language. The arrangement is chronological, beginning with terms from the 7th and 8th centuries, and travelling through a landscape that is at first Celtic, then Anglo-Saxon, then Norman, and then increasingly globalised in scope. I have chosen the words partly in a spirit of serendipity. See entry for the origin of this word later in the audiobook, and partly to give due weight to the contribution of each strand or stratum that makes up English as we use it today. The Anglo-Saxon or Old English one therefore outweighs the Viking or Norse one, while Celtic is inevitably reduced to some vestiges in place names and a few other topographical terms. Meanwhile, Latin is everywhere in the period following the conquest of 1066, not only because of the influence of that ancient language on the form of French spoken by the Normans, but also because of its widespread use as the international language of scholarship and religious observance. And where there is Latin, Greek will not be far behind. Sometimes foreign languages have made a direct, untranslated contribution to English, and there is discussion in May We Borrow Your Language of words like pasta, schadenfreude, and agitprop, some of which seem to embody the culture that created them, or so we might like to think. Then there are a handful of expressions that, very unusually, can be attributed to a particular person. Gas, quark, meme. One-off words that have come into existence by mistake. Tranect, mundagreen, and others whose origins are completely obscure, sometimes quite usual terms such as big, as well as eponymous expressions created out of people's names, Stalinist, bowdlerize, and portmanteau terms, slang and acronyms, and the occasional unclassifiable oddity like 24/7. This is not a methodical tread through the ages. The various centuries from around the 6th or 7th to the 21st are not evenly represented. Word creation goes in irregular waves, with a peak, for example, in the innovative and expansive Elizabethan and Jacobean periods. For contrast, look at the difference between the first half of the 12th century, for which fewer than 500 new words are cited in the Oxford English Dictionary, and the almost 80,000 words cited in the first half of the 17th. Of course, many of these new dictionary words are offshoots of older ones, as, for example, in the first recorded use of a noun in its verb form. But the general pattern is clear. Some eras and periods are worth more attention than others. As a general note on featured words and phrases in May We Borrow Your Language, words that are the subject of dedicated entries appear in bold in the printed text, and I will emphasise them here, e.g. lexicographer. Those that are distinctively foreign or antiquated English are italicised. For example, Weltschmerz from German or Hull from Old English. And those that are familiar in English, but whose origins or use are being highlighted, generally appear